And now let's have a look at day 2 of your visit to Barcelona. We're presenting here an organized approach for a comprehensive 3-day visit to this beautiful city, suggesting what you might do each hour of the day. Now, early birds might find that most of this city does not open until well after breakfast, except with one exception for the huge food market located along the Rambla called the Mercat De La Boqueria.
And as you can see, it's a very lively food market, open every day from early in the morning until into the evening. They've got fruits and vegetables, meats and fish, they've got truffles, they've got all kinds of gourmet delicacies here.
This busy food hall comes to life quite early, actually starting from 6 a.m. when the first workers are getting there and setting things up. And there's a few coffee counters even that are open at that early hour inside the hall and just outside around the corner as well too. So this is about the only place in town available for such an early caffeine fix, if you happen to wake up early and want to get a head start on the day. The Mercat De La Boqueria is fully up and running by 7 a.m. and stays open throughout the day, making this a great place to hang out for a while, watch the colorful action, get a coffee, and maybe pick up some snacks for your busy day ahead. There are several small food counters here that offer a chance for a quick meal, tasty food, and a chance to rub elbows with some talkative locals. Eating at a simple cafe like this, sitting on a stool, is a refreshing contrast to the long wait for table service that you get in a typical restaurant, because here everything happens immediately right in front of your eyes when you sit down on the stool, especially when it's not crowded. If it is crowded, well, you can expect that the local customers might get a little bit of priority over the tourists, so just be patient and sit there with a happy attitude and they'll take care of you soon enough. Now, most of the market's products really are meant to be brought home and cooked. It's the local scene for the local housewives are out picking up their daily fresh produce, etc. So that's the main market. But the intrepid traveler can certainly find some great items that you can snack on during the day. There's lots of fruits and nuts and cheese and breads and sweet treats of all kinds. And this is so convenient, it'll cost a lot less and be more convenient than meals purchased in a restaurant, that's for sure. And there's a lot to be said for munching on simple foods that you pull out of your pocket while you're just walking along sightseeing. And so far there's no medical reports that say that eating while you walk is unhealthy. In fact, maybe it's a good thing because one, you're giving your body some fuel, and two, you're walking and working out and burning off some calories at the same time. So it's really kind of a nice combination, snacking while you walk. Of course, you're going to want to sit down and enjoy some great meals, but not necessarily every time you get hungry, especially if it's outside the normal meal hours when your appetite and slumping energy levels call for some attention. Well, this market is housed in an old-fashioned steel and glass structure that was first built in the mid-19th century with an elaborate steel facade that was put up in the modernista style about a century ago. The Mercat de la Boqueria resembles some of those other great food halls that were once found throughout Europe's major cities, nearly all of which have been torn down or converted into more modern shopping malls. In many ways, these food hall structures were the first truly modern buildings to incorporate the engineering technique of glass walls held together by steel frames, which has subsequently dominated urban architecture. So the continued existence of this particular structure is another fine example of the intact preservation of Barcelona's historic center. Its archaic glass and steel design looks like something out of an old movie, but this market continues to play a really important role in the modern daily lives of shoppers getting their daily fix of fresh, healthy foods. Most shops of the Gothic Quarter have old facades. They look very ancient from the outside, but when you walk inside them, they're very sleek and ultra-contemporary, very modern and up-to-date. Unlike this Mercat De La Boqueria, where it seems like you've stepped back into the 19th century. Now, even if you don't want any food, and even if you have no interest in architectural history, just simply walking through this market is an adventure for your senses, passing row after row of perfectly displayed fruits and vegetables arranged by workers who really care about the visual impact, the color, and aesthetics, while at the same time you are immersed in the bustling atmosphere of busy shoppers and merchants calling out their specials in booming Spanish tones to grab your attention. Odors fill the air with constantly changing palette as you walk from cheese to fish and onto the fruits and veggies. So you're getting sight, sound, color, motion, odor, and taste. This is an experience not to be missed. Well, you might do it early in the morning before breakfast and then head back to your hotel for your morning meal. In our case, we're staying at the Hotel Cologne, which is right on one of the main squares of town facing the cathedral. And they have a lovely breakfast buffet here at the hotel. Eggs and bacon and all kinds of fruits and cereals and juices and so on. And it's a nice chance for our group to get together at the beginning of the day and have a meal, swap stories. This is filmed during one of our regular trips with the Hawaii Geographic Society. Actually, our visit to Barcelona is part of a longer tour. We started in Barcelona and continued on through the Mediterranean, through the south of France, Carcassonne, Avignon, Aix, to the city of Nice, and then on to the Italian Mediterranean, to Cinque Terre and Portofino, and finally ending up in Rome. And of course later on World Traveler we'll bring you more episodes from this trip. Well, after breakfast, on day 2, you might begin your pursuit of architectural masterpieces created by Antoni Gaudí. He lived from 1852 through 1926 and was certainly Barcelona's most famous architect. One good strategy is to start at Park Güell, a whimsical fantasy of colored ceramics and bizarre pavilions and curved paths that wind through a lush garden setting. It was created at the beginning of the 20th century. However, Park Güell is too far from the center to comfortably reach by walking. You can get there in about 30 minutes by public transportation, preferably city bus number 24, heading in the Carmel direction, which drops you off right next to the upper level of the park. And you can catch that bus from some main parts of town like Placa de Catalunya and Passeig de Gràcia. You could also get there by underground train. The metro will also bring you to the general vicinity. However, you do have to walk much further if you take the metro. You can use the Green Line L3, and you can get off at the Lesseps station or even the Valcarce station, but then you'll face a 20-minute walk uphill. There's some public escalators that you can use. These are outdoor open escalators right along the sidewalk, so that does help your uphill climb. But there are some steps that you've also got to climb up. And then finally, you'll gain access to the park from the backside, and you walk through some very pleasant curved paths through the forest. So that's the route if you take the metro. On the other hand, if you took that public bus, it drops you off right next to the park at the upper level. And it's very convenient. You can just walk right in, and you're right there at the terrace, the main terrace. Now, it's a good idea to try and arrive at this ever popular spot when it opens at 10 a.m. to beat the crowds, and then you'll get an unobstructed look at the fantasy structures. The park pavilions are a colorful whirl of curved surfaces that are kind of inspired by some fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel. And they look something like big ice cream sundaes. The bright ceramic mosaics liven up the surface in a trincatus style of ornamentation, especially on the sinuous benches that line the upper terrace. And to create this sort of mosaic, what they did was take porcelain plates. All of this is under Gaudí's direction, of course. Take pieces of colorful porcelain and smash them, hammer them into little pieces, and then rearranged them in this mosaic style, almost like a jigsaw puzzle. There's a landmark Salamander Fountain that guards the twin stairs leading up to the 86-column hypostyle hall, which was supposed to have been a covered food market. This whole thing was going to be a housing development, but it went bankrupt. It was a complete failure as a housing development. Only 2 houses were ever built, one of which Gaudi moved into and is now a museum. And so the housing project went bankrupt, but instead we have this brilliant 37-acre park with winding pathways, and there's stone porticos and phantasmagoric pavilions. Gaudi lived on the property, and his home is converted into a small museum of his memorabilia for die-hard fans of Gaudi. However, there's really not too much inside the house. You'll see some of his odd-shaped furniture, which he designed as well. And you'll see his study, his bedroom, his living room, and so on as you walk through the house. But there is an admission charge, and it will take you some time, and you might not find that necessary to go inside the house, but you can certainly look at the outside of it for free. And it's right over, located near the bus station as well too. So it could only take you, say, 30 minutes to see the park from top to bottom, but you might want to linger in the gift shop, and you might also want to get something to eat in one of their 2 snack bars. There's food and seating at a lower cafe near the front gates, but there's a sandwich counter that's up above on the main terrace that has a pleasant outdoor ambience and kind of a strangely entertaining way of ordering the food. You tell the clerk your sandwich order, and then he shouts it back to the kitchen and shouts back at you, 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
I called you 5 minutes, 5 minutes, I called you.
Without really taking your name or giving you a number or anything else. So you just wait around, and then he'll shout out, tuna sandwich. And you go back and pick up your sandwich, and it all works out pretty well in the end. Now, this is not great food, but it's a simple sandwich on a long, hard roll. And if you're hungry, well, it's right here, and it's a beautiful setting, and it's not very expensive, so that could hit the spot. Well, after your visit, exit out the east side of the park and walk a short block over to the public bus stop where you may have arrived, and you get on the park side of the street. The bus stop is right there, and catch about a 10-minute bus ride that'll bring you down close to Gaudi's monumental masterpiece, the Sagrada Familia. And it's a decent little bus ride. It takes you through some of the local streets, and at Sagrada Familia you walk along 3 wide blocks of this Avinguda Gaudi, and you just head towards the looming towers of the church. Now, another diversion might beckon first, however. When you get off the bus, you could walk 2 blocks in the opposite direction to go have a look at the beautiful Hospital de la Santa Creo, which is a Gothic complex that was begun in 1401, and it's got some Modernismo finishings on it as well. It contains a cloister, churches, library, hospital, patios, and park, along with a school. And this complex is listed together as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But on the other hand, maybe you just want to head towards Sagrada Familia, and as you're walking along this 3-block wide promenade, you'll notice there's a few more eateries, so if you haven't had a lunch yet, this would be a very good place to eat in any one of these cafes. Well, the number 1 attraction of Barcelona is undoubtedly Sagrada Familia. This unfinished church is a whimsical steel beam mountain that's growing out of the landscape. It's really organic. It looks like it's alive. It's a creature of the imaginative mind of Gaudi, who died while it was still under construction. He was run down by a tram in a tragic accident. And Barcelonans have been working on the church ever since, for over a century now. And at this rate, it might continue for another century, although they do hope to finish it up in 10 or 20 years. There are still various political arguments about how to get the work done and how to pay for it. But the Sagrada Familia is, of course, open to the public already. It's like an open pit construction site. You can ride an elevator most of the way up one of the towers and then walk a bit further to the top. From here you gain quite a view looking down into the open church at the construction site, as well as some beautiful vistas across the city. It's an incredible panorama of the skyline of Barcelona, and it shows further details of the towers, the soaring towers of Sagrada Familia itself. However, this part of town, there's really not too much to see in terms of a skyline vista. There is that odd modern looking building. It looks like a big pickle, like the Gherkin in London. Now when you go back down into the church, there are scale models on exhibit on the ground floor that will help you envision what the final product will look like. And you can also watch the workers as they're doing their carvings, they're creating sculptures, and of course doing all this construction, this busy construction site with hard hat workers bustling to and from. It's really a busy and productive area. Or alternatively, you could just save your time and money by looking at Sagrada Familia from the outside, just looking up at this heaping pile of stone, which gives the main impression anyway, and then just don't bother paying the admission fee. Don't go inside, just look at it from the outside. Much of the interior is a hectic, noisy construction site, so unless you really want the view from the tower and really want to see all the details of the construction work in progress, you're not missing that much by skipping the interior visit. Of course, those with a genuine interest in Sagrada Familia will certainly enjoy walking through it, paying the admission, spending the time, at least half an hour inside, perhaps an hour if you go up the towers, and admiring the beautiful stained glass windows and this forest of tall columns that are finished in many different styles. It is truly a spectacular building. Such a strange building, however, is not everyone's cup of tea, but it has become the symbol of Barcelona, so you really should come over here and have a look at it. Fortunately, there's a metro stop here so that you can easily get back to the center of town, especially if you take the L2 line. Its entrance is just east of the church, traveling in the direction of the parallel terminus. Sagrada Familia is conveniently located right between two metro lines, making it very easy to get from here back into different parts of town. Or you might be ready to hop onto one of these open-top sightseeing buses for a 2-hour city tour. The buses all stop, of course, at Sagrada Familia, and if you want, you can just hop on right here and pay the driver and take the tour. In this case, you don't need to ride on the metro. Now, obviously, Sagrada Familia is a major stop for all of the tour buses, which come here and they sit and wait a while to pick up more passengers, so there's always an opportunity to hop on one of these buses. You just grab a seat upstairs for the best view and settle in for a ride, first of all past the outskirts of town that you would never get to see by walking. Now, this bus ride is really not essential to your visit to Barcelona because all of the major sites are back in the center of town and they are reached on foot. In fact, the buses are not even allowed into the pedestrian areas. But you might be curious about what the rest of the city looks like, and the bus tour will show you. It brings you past the University District on the west edge of town and by the large soccer stadium, along some broad boulevards lined with apartment houses laid out in a very attractive and efficient manner. There's several routes for the bus tour available, covering both sides of the city. Now, as you ride along, it becomes really clear that there is much more to the city than those narrow pedestrian lanes of the Gothic Quarter. A variety of older and contemporary buildings are packed in a pleasing mix throughout many square miles of the urban core. And this bus tour would take up most of the remainder of the afternoon, leaving some time for a leisurely late afternoon stroll and dinner, and then an evening walk of your choice. Barcelona really comes to life in the evening even more enthusiastically than during the day. So don't stop exploring when the sun goes down. Shops generally remain open until about 8 o'clock at night. Many of them do shut down in the afternoon for a siesta for several hours, so this makes the evening an ideal time for wandering the narrow alleys. Most respectable restaurants don't even open until 7:30 or 8 p.m., which is kind of late for some travelers, but that's the way of life throughout the country. The tapa bars and snack shops are open earlier if you need a nibble. And of course, the fast food and sandwich shops are open all day long. But save your real appetite for a little bit later at a nice restaurant. However, instead of eating during twilight, sitting indoors, and missing this beautiful time of the day, you might find greater enjoyment by strolling during this magic hour out in the streets. They're filled with locals, and it's illuminated by this wonderful mix of lighting that it combines the golden glow of evening with sunset in the background, along with the city lights and the shop lights. You've got fluorescent lighting and colored incandescent lighting. It's really a magical glow that goes on for about 30 minutes to an hour. Especially for photographers, it's that golden time of day. So it might be best to adjust your life cycle rhythm to the local schedule and participate in this passing parade. Then settle in for a wonderful dinner. We enjoyed a terrific dinner at a restaurant near the Hotel Cologne. It was really a lot of fun. And in this case, it was tapas, and we were able to go right up to the food counter and point to items that we wanted. You can see them right in front of you, and then the waitress brings it over to the table, and we can all share in this wonderful food together. And then you settle up on the bill best you can. Maybe you can split the check equally, or pay for drinks separately, or just work it out somehow when you're with a group. No problem. Things go very quickly that way.